first off, the Brier, how long, or curling, how long are you expecting and how long to stay there and how long are you packing for? What's the length?
Well, I think you pack for a couple of weeks. And then if everything goes well and you have to stay there, you find a washer and dryer. I think that's the main thing, because you don't know. Like, obviously the odds of winning are a little bit lower than normal, but you never know, Bob. We're obviously going there to win, and that's what we want to do. So we'll pack. I think we pack for a couple of weeks and go from there.
Anything different going to be in the luggage? Like, I've talked to guys who might be taking Nintendos or Lego or whatever. I mean, what are you going to do to pass the time?
Well, it's funny. Wayner says to me the other day, he says, I've got this new PS2 or PS4, whatever it is, golf game. He says, it's really good. I said, you're putting it in your luggage because we're going to be playing that a lot. Like, stuff that you never do. Like, I'm going to be bringing a lot more books than I ever would. I'm going to, I'm sure Netflix is going to be top. We're going to use that a lot. Playing cards. Because, Bob, there's going to be nothing to do. We can't leave the building. We can virtually hardly leave a room. There's nowhere to go. It's not going. I don't think it's going to be a lot of fun, but it is what it is, right? So you got to make do.
The NHL guys told me that they a lot of them, when they were staying in the hotels here in Toronto last year, they bought or they had golf simulators put into the foyer of their floor.
How good is that?
There's an idea.
That is great. You got a spare one? You can lend it to us.
I don't have one hanging around. Sorry.
What a great idea.
How much have you played? How many games have you played?
We played 20 games prior to Christmas and played very well. We were really playing well at that time, Bob. We went to every final. Went to four. I think. Well, sorry. The first one was canceled due to a COVID alert. We were going to the semifinal. And then the next three, we went right to the final, lost every final, but we got there. So that was good. Like, we were playing real well. And then obviously COVID hit and, all the clubs shut down. And nothing since, I'm going to say we went to Penticton. We actually flew to Penticton. So that would be middle of November. That's the last competitive game. So
what's your practice right now? Have you got any ice anywhere? Or?
Just secured ice literally last week in Penetang, which was great. We actually come up with a few dollars ourselves to they're on the bubble as to what to do. They're, as a lot of curling clubs are, a lot of them are pulling the plug. Penetang's taking the avenue that it's the glass is half full. We're going to maybe get some curling in the next couple of months, and they wanted to keep it in. We kind of helped them out. So listen, if I can help out, we need some practice ice. So we're fortunate because there's not that many curling clubs in the country that have ice. So they started. They were allowed. I guess they got it going last week. We started back up last week, and I've basically got a month. We got a month to throw some rocks and get ready. It's crazy.
What do you think the quality of the curling is going to be like in the early games at the Brier? Just because everybody seems to be in that same kind of situation that you just outlined.
I still think it's going to be good, Bob. I think that, there's a lot. I know there's a lot of the Eastern teams. I think have had ice right through. They haven't had to change anything. I've heard Manitoba can't find a sheet of ice in the province. I've heard we're getting a piecemeal. A little bit in Toronto here and there. I think it's still going to be really good, Bob. I think guys are going to be a little bit tentative. My guess is just because you're not going to be fully confident. Even if you just have practice ice solid for the last 2 or 3 months, not playing an actual competitive curling game is different. Practice, as you know, is not the same as real life. So I think everybody's going to be off a little bit with just kind of like coming out of a summer. You come to summer and you play your first spiel, whatever, you're going to have that you're not sure sort of attitude, but I still think the quality is going to be really good.
What's it like going back to your 64th Brier?
I think it's 65, Bob. But anyway, it's obviously this one's a little different just because I didn't feel like we earned a spot. We didn't win a spot. The previous 17, you did. You had to play well enough to do it. And this one was just sort of not handed to you. Obviously, it's because of our rankings from the year before, but it's just different because it's just like all of a sudden you get a phone call, hey, you're now in. Oh, as opposed to you win on the Sunday at your provincials, you're all excited and everything, and all that hoopla. Now it's like, oh no, you're actually going, and so it's obviously super excited though to be going back again. Like hey, listen, I don't know how many more years I'm playing, very few, I think, but to be able to go back to another one is surreal, and I'm just as excited as I did in my first one in 1986.
Do you think you'll be the only guy in the field who's eligible to collect old age pension?
100%, absolutely, and I'm probably the only one that has a grandson too. I'll tell you.
Wow, that's really something. That's great.
Uh,
Do you think that it'll be a bigger challenge on the ice or off the ice? Or is it just going to be so different that you can't really compare this to any past Brier?
I think off the ice more than anything, because it's just so. I've talked at length about being on the so on the ice is going to be obviously a lot different in the fact we don't have crowds, we don't have the big screams and yells. But Bob, the majority of my career, I've played not in front of people. Like it's all the bonspiels you play. Sure, there's people behind a glass, you don't hear them. You're in a curling club. You do, there are the Grand Slams and of course the Briers when you get the fans. That's not that often compared to all the other curling that I've done in my career. So that's not going to be a big difference. I think the big thing is you're not going to have that goosebump moment where either I threw a shot or my teammate or somebody on the next sheet and the crowd goes nuts and you're ooh, and the hairs on your arms stand up. Well, what just happened? There's going to be none of that because it's going to be crickets, right? So that's and again, we're going to be used to playing under those conditions, albeit now it is for the national championship, something that we've never experienced before. So that will be different. But I think you get out there, the competitive juices are going. You're still going to be, trying to make as many shots as possible. The difference is when you get off the ice. Now, you're yourself. I'm not going to see Bob Weeks sticking a microphone in front of me. It's going to be a Zoom call, and then it's going to be, get in your car, get in your van right back to the hotel. You can't stop and maybe have a drink in the patch. All that, which has made the Brier what it is going to be gone. So that part is going to be really different.
Okay, here's Wayne Middaugh, who's all of a sudden you're off to the Brier. My goodness, this is kind of a little bit of a shock, but walk us through how it is that you got onto this team and how you got to be probably a guy who's going to play more games than you may have thought even when you got asked.
You know what? I was the lucky recipient of being on the other end of the phone when it rang. And the gist of it is I couldn't believe it. Like when we were almost joking about what happened with me 5 years ago, and I called Glenn to say, Glenn, I can't curl anymore. I'm done. And he didn't believe me. And then he just gets the nod for the Brier. And literally a couple of days later, he calls me. He said, well, it was actually Scott that called me and said, Wayne, you're not going to believe this. And I literally didn't believe them. But, here we are a few weeks later and I'm going to the Brier.
And a Brier unlike any other. I mean, this is going to be something different. It's going to be you and the other curlers and 200 cardboard cutouts. I mean, what are you expecting of a Brier like this? First of all, about going into a bubble, about living in there and quarantining and all that. What do you? I mean, there's no Brier patch. What's it going to be like?
Well, the good or bad, I had for lack of a better word, I had somebody out there ahead of me last week. So Sherry just came home, so she's given me exactly day to day. This is what you need to do. This is where you order food. I'm a little fortunate there, and she's passed that information along to Glenn and everybody else here, so we know what we're getting into, probably a little bit more than some people do. But you know what, I still think it's going to be great. I was as a kid growing up, same as you, it's a dream to play in the Brier, and when you don't think you're ever going to curl again, and then all of a sudden you're playing in the Brier. Well, all of a sudden 5 years later you're playing in the Brier. Like truly is a dream, Bob.
Okay, so let's touch on that. For some people who don't know, you had a pretty horrific skiing accident a few years back, and I mean, curling wasn't what you were thinking about. You were thinking about kind of getting back to a normal life, right?
I could walk again, yeah. Like I was 11 breaks in my leg. I have a 15-inch titanium tibia now, and you know what? I get around pretty well, but I'm going to say you could beat me in a race quite easy. I've managed to make it work into a curling slide. Again, I got to thank. I really didn't have a lot of interest in ever playing again, and it was Team Hasselberg that made that difference in me really wanting to play. And then, of course, the support of my kids. My kids pushed me to play too, so that was a big part of it.
So you've been coaching, obviously, so you have had some contact with the game, but there was a period where you kind of
2 years
had nothing to do with it, right?
2 years. I had literally nothing to do with it. I was. I went from a hospital bed to a wheelchair to physiotherapy for a year and a half. And my life revolved in, like I say, trying to learn how to walk again. It's something else, but I feel very lucky. I always knew I would. I didn't know to what extent. And, but like I say, here I am playing the Brier again. I'm pretty happy about it.
You might be able to give Tiger Woods a little advice on what he's going through. But
Yeah.
so what are you expecting in terms of going out there for your ability to play? What are you expecting on how many games you'll play? Because you're not the only one who's banged up on this team. Glenn has had a little bit of an issue with a snowmobile accident and got some rib problems. But walk us through what your expectations are as far as participating.
Yeah, well, right now, I plan to play the week. Like that's our team plan. We've obviously sat down and talked about it. Glenn has thrown. He's thrown a few rocks. We practiced actually together. He was out on the ice holding the broom for me every time I went out, and that was great to have him out there. And he finally broke it in, and it took him a little while to look like Glenn Howard throwing a rock. He was pretty shaky the first few, let me tell you. And of course, he was protecting everything. But I currently plan to play and hopefully play well or play the best I can anyways for a 53-year-old guy playing in the Brier.
Now, I've known you a long time, and I've never seen you step on the ice when you haven't been at full competitive mode. Is that still going to happen, do you think?
Oh, God, I sure hope so. It it just comes out, Bob. It's just a natural trait that I have. And, it's whether it's good or bad, if I'm out on the ice curling, or I hate to say it, if I'm shooting hoops with my daughters, I have never let them win once in my life, and they will tell you the same thing. There's no slowdown. It's you play to win.
Is this a bit of an exciting moment for you? I mean, like you said, you weren't expecting to go back. Now you're going back. You're playing in the Brier. It's the best thing. I mean, can you soak this all in before you actually get there yet?
You know what? It's hard to imagine, but I'm probably more excited than when I went to my first Brier in 1991, 30 years ago with Russ. We had expectations back then. You're playing with Russ Howard. You're doing all these things. Well, so you prepared. You were ready all year long. You worked towards this goal. Well, this came at me 5 weeks ago, and it was literally it's like winning the lottery. It truly is. It's a dream come true for somebody. And like I say, it's to be there. And the way I look at it is I get to play against the best teams in the world for hopefully 10 days, and I'll do everything I can to keep them honest.
What's going to be in your luggage? You got anything special you're packing to pack past this time?
It's a little different, that's for sure. Well, again, Sherry said, you know what? You don't need clothes. You just need comfortable clothes because you literally go curling club, hotel. That's it. There's probably a few more snacks in there than I normally have, and then we'll order the appropriate beverages once we arrive in Calgary.
Anything with Clamato juice maybe involved?
There's a really good chance. It's a nice way to start your morning sometimes. It's a great gateway to the day.
Well, we wish you all the best out there and have some fun, and we'll see what happens. Maybe the old guard will be able to carry the flag one more time.
Yeah, Bob, I'll do everything I can to just simply draw the 8 foot and hit and stay whenever it's needed.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
How long are you expecting to stay at this point in the bubble?
For us, it looks like potentially 8 weeks. I think what we're fighting over now, or not fighting, but debating over right now, is if we don't win the Brier, there's about a 2.5 week stretch before we play the Champions Cup. And we're trying to figure out what we want to do, whether we get outside the bubble, maybe rent a house in Alberta, or stay in the bubble. We really can't come home because we'd have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So we've eliminated that option. So right now we do have a house rented in case we don't win the Brier, but hopefully we do. And then we're in the bubble for 8 weeks. So it's either way, it's going to be a long stretch away from family. It is going to be the 8 weeks plus the 2 weeks quarantine at the end. So 10 weeks before I see my kids and my wife again, which is going to be a challenge.
What about mixed doubles? You're not doing mixed doubles?
Yeah, we're going to play mixed doubles. The reason that we added mixed doubles into the schedule was this whole 2 week quarantine that we face coming back to Newfoundland. And, even if we didn't play mixed doubles, we'd come home for 2 weeks, have to quarantine, and then we'd only get about 10 days before we'd have to go back again. And with as little curling as we have done, the chance to play mixed doubles and get out there and compete, it just made a lot of sense. And when we talk to our wives and our family members, they're like, you know what, to quarantine for 2 weeks, be home for 10 days, and then go back again, you might as well go play another event for that period.
So what are you packing? Like, how do you pack for 2 months?
A lot of bags. We're pretty lucky that we have some status with Air Canada, so we could take 3 bags, and I think we're going to need all 3 of them. For me, I'm in school. I'm doing my MBA right now, so I know 1 bag is going to be books and binders and everything that I need for that. Being 40 years old and trying to curl, there's probably going to be another bag that's going to have all my therapeutic stuff in there. And then the other bag will have some clothes and some shoes and the toiletries in there. So that's what I'm looking at. For some of the 20 somethings going in there, there's probably going to be some, Nintendos or Xbox or PlayStations. But for me, it's that's kind of what I'm looking at.
No Lego in any of those bags?
If they want to send me one, I'm certainly willing to do it, but I don't know if I could fit one into the bags. But that's actually a great idea, Bob. That might kill a day or two putting one of those together.
How much have you played? Like, where would you say your status is now as you get ready to go compared to normal years?
That's a tough question. So we certainly haven't played as much as we have in previous years. We haven't been able to travel outside the province. We played 2 events in Halifax back in November. And as far as practice, we've been fortunate to get on the ice. I think the next couple of weeks is going to be a challenge. We may not be allowed to throw, but tough time to not be on the ice 2 weeks before leading into the bubble. But as far as practicing, we've been able to do it. We just haven't thrown that many rocks. Like in a typical practice session, if we're throwing, 50, 60, 70, 80 rocks, typically I would say this year it's been 20, 30, 40. And the reason for that is when you're playing 7, 8, 9 events throughout the year, I kind of use them as kind of building blocks or checkpoints, where you go play an event and you realize, oh my God, my intern is not where I want it to be. So then you spend the next couple of weeks figuring that out. And then maybe you realize that, okay, my outturn's not where I want it to be. And then you play around with that. We really haven't had those checkpoints to see where we are. So you go out and you practice, and similar to golf, your range game is good, but until you get on the course, you really don't know. And that's kind of the situation I feel we're in right now. Is our range game is pretty good, but we haven't got on the course to check it out. And that's where a little bit of anxiety for me is I don't know where our game is right now because we haven't had a chance to go out and test it.
So having said that, do you have any idea what the quality of curling is going to be like at the Brier, at least in the early going? Because you sound like you've played more than a lot of teams have.
Yeah, well, we've been on the ice more. I think we probably played the least out of everybody. I think a lot of teams out west got a bunch of events in the fall. We haven't played an event or a game as a team since the Brier last year. I haven't seen Jeff in person since the night we won the Brier. So that's going to be a bit of an issue. We played with spares when we played those events in the fall. But certainly I think we practiced probably more than some of those other teams. I'm a little bit concerned the 2 weeks leading into it, we can't get on the ice. We're now in Alberta and Ontario. You're starting to see a little bit of that availability for those players where they can get on there. But I would anticipate the level not to be as high. I still think it's going to be pretty high, but, I'm thinking probably 2 to 3% drop, which, doesn't sound like much, but it's considerable over the course of the week. And I wouldn't attribute it to not playing or to not practicing or not throwing. I think, there's a portion there of being game ready and being, used to playing big games. And when you go a year without doing it, it takes a while to come back from that. And I think everybody's going to struggle that. And I think the team that's going to prevail at the end of the week arguably may not be the best team, but it's going to be the team that's best at adapting to the situation and adapting to the fact there's no fans and that they're away from their family for a long period of time. So there's going to be some different skill sets that are going to be used to be successful in the bubble.
You were going back to the bubble and going back and forth. Have you sort of looked at all the instructions, where you're allowed to go, what you're not allowed to do, how are you going to spend not so much the time that you're curling, but the off time? I know the NHL, for instance, some of the teams put driving golf simulators in their hallways and things. But have you thought about how you're going to pass that time?
I'd love a golf simulator. We don't have the budget of some of those NHL teams, but you know what? When we when we were told about some of the details of the bubble and what it entailed, to be honest, it scared us. Knowing the restrictions that are going to be on us for that period of time. We all got off that phone call or that Zoom call, and we were like, what are we getting ourselves into? And I think the mental drain that it's going to have on us, and being away from the family, and really being away from our team too. There's a considerable amount of time where we have to be on our own in our own hotel room by ourselves. So, you bring up a good point. How do you fill that time? And for everybody, it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be, you're going to have books. You're probably going to have some sort of entertainment system, or, some show that you want to binge watch on Netflix. But really the biggest challenge that I foresee is the inability to really get out and go for a walk or do any sort of exercise. Right now, it doesn't look like we're going to have access to any gym facilities when we're there, and we're not allowed to leave the hotel. So even if you just want to go out and get some fresh air and kind of get away from things, you don't have that ability. So there's going to be a lot of that, a lot of sedentary, just kind of sitting around on the bed, wondering what to do. So trying to overcome that, we're trying to figure out some solutions. We got some ideas, and we really don't know until you get there and figure out what's going to work for you. And the good thing we do have is, the women are doing it first with the Scotties, and with Jeff and Brett, their significant others are in the bubble. So hopefully we can learn a little bit from them before we go in for our long stretch.
What about financially for some of these players and some of these teams? Because obviously, if you're going for 8 weeks, maybe a guy like you, it might be, I don't know. I don't know how it works for people. It's a big commitment, isn't it?
It's a huge commitment. It's, but on the other side, there's some teams that, kind of rely on their winnings to make do, some of the younger teams. And they really haven't had the ability to go out and play and compete. They're probably not eligible for some of the funding that was available through the government. So, I could see some of those younger teams being pretty anxious to get in there and have a chance to make a little bit of money. For more, I'm going to say, established guys, which is also known as old guys like myself and some of the others, it is a long time away from work and from your business. And there is a financial commitment there. But you hope you can go in there and maybe win a couple of these and kind of make up for that. But for us, it's more about just the mental well-being and getting a chance to do something that we love. And obviously just about every team in there is really striving to get to the Olympics in 2021 or 2022, I guess. And this is a big stepping stone towards that. If you miss this bubble, all of a sudden you've gone 18 months before competing, and going to put you in a pretty rough position come the trials in December of this year.
What are you expecting for life in the bubble coming up, and how long do you think you'll stay there?
Yeah, good question. We've had some really good team discussions about the bubble, just trying to do everything we can, Bob, to plan accordingly. And one of the things I think that we're really good at is we're open-minded. We feel like we're pretty nimble. We can adapt and stuff like that. So we're just really excited to get out to Calgary and get in the bubble and be able to compete. We're going to, like I said, come up with a really good plan, stick to it. I know that Rick and Arthur and also Lee, we're bringing a fifth man, are going to be working on sort of a daily plan and routine for us that hopefully we can get into, and looking forward to playing.
How long do you figure you'll be there?
Yeah, well, I guess at least the duration of the Brier, so that's going to be approximately 2 weeks, and then I don't know. I guess we'll see. The World Championships is scheduled to go, as we know, and obviously the winning team the team that prevails at the Brier is going to have a really busy schedule. I'm not really thinking that far ahead. Just thinking of the Brier and. Hopefully going there to win that thing.
How many competitive games have you got going in?
How many competitive games?
Can you count them on one hand?
Pretty much. A dozen or so.
Wow. And anything? When was your most recent game?
Well, we went out to Penticton. That was our most recent game. We lost to Tardy, kicked our butts, those young punks. Yeah.
It's what do you think is going to be the toughest part about living in the bubble?
Well, not too sure. Probably, I don't know, being isolated when we get there. I would say, when we go to these events, you get into a groove, and it's easy to find that groove pretty early. But going in, not really knowing what to expect, I think it's going to be challenging to sort of figure out, just get a good feel inside of there. And some of the challenges that we're trying to think of and plan for are like food. I would say exercise, making sure that we have a good balance of downtime, as well as, we want to preserve energy as much as possible, but we don't want to get into a slump and just be locked up in our rooms watching Netflix or movies, right? So we'll figure it out. I'm really confident we'll figure it out. And I think one of the other challenges, you look forward to the camaraderie and being with other teams and chatting and maybe get together for a bite to eat or a drink or something like that. We can't do that, as well as, locker room banter, all that stuff is going to be out the window. So it'll be interesting, but hey, you know what? We get to compete for a Canadian championship, and that's exciting.
Anything interesting going to be in your luggage? I talked to Brad Gushue. He said he's going to maybe pack Lego because he's a big Lego guy. But I mean, are you guys going to bring all your workout bands and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we'll definitely have, we'll have some snacks and things like that we want for the week. Who knows? We may even try to pack some sort of gaming console. I'm sure we'll pack, deck of cards and things to keep us busy. Stuff like that. Nothing too crazy, but yeah, we're just in the process of planning that out. So
the NHL guys, they when they were locked up in the hotels, they ordered up a golf simulator and put it in the lobby of their floor.
Yeah.
I thought that might go over pretty well with some of the guys there.
That would be.
All right, and what do you think the quality of curling is going to be like early on, just because so few teams have got any kind of competition under their belts?
Yeah, I think everybody's going to be sort of brushing the rust off a little bit. I've been telling people tune in early in the week because we're probably really going to look human. A lot of teams, I would assume. So it should be interesting. It'll be neat, and I do foresee it being a little bit tough. People are going to be getting used to the ice and just getting out there and competing again. So. But I think that it'll be like riding a bike for a lot of teams, and I foresee that the caliber and the shot making being incredible, especially since the field is so good.
How long are you planning to spend in this bubble, you think?
I think the first go around here for the Brier, I think it's about 13 days ish, 14 days maybe. I don't even really know. But obviously, we have to isolate either at home or in a hotel for 3 days prior to entering. So 72 hours after a test without leaving the house. So, you're going to be on pretty strict lockdown for, upwards of 2 weeks. But I mean, that's short compared to how long we've been on lockdown here in the past few months. So nothing's changing, except I actually get to go out and, we get to do something that we love and hopefully entertain you guys on TV with the lockdown. I mean, if I have to lock down at home and do nothing, I'd rather lock down in a hotel and curl. That would be a lot more fun.
Yeah. But you're packing for like 2 weeks essentially.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks, and our goal and with our expectations and our team is always to represent Canada. We want to win, and if we happen to win, and then you do the men's worlds and the 2 slams back to back, then I think you're in there somewhere around 30-35 days kind of deal.
And anything special you're going to pack in your luggage? I was talking to Gushue. He's going to pack Lego because he's a big Lego fiend.
Yeah, yeah. What was Jacob saying?
Jacobs and the boys are packing all sorts of rubber band equipment, stuff they can work out at within their rooms and stuff like that. What are you guys packing?
Yeah, well, I bought a PS4. I don't know if it was for me or my kids. I think I originally bought it. My daughter wanted it for this dance revolution game or something, but I bought a PS4. I've been playing a lot of PGA golf on there, and I've been playing some Madden as well. So I'm going to take my PS4 and play some video games. And Johnny Moe can't really sit still, so I'm gonna have to keep him on the train track. So we don't have any access to a gym in the bubble, so I'm actually gonna take I got a Peloton bike through the lockdown here, so I think I'm just gonna load it up in my truck. And that's one advantage of being in Calgary where I live. I'm gonna drive my Peloton down and throw it into one of our rooms so we can get a good sweat on. And same kind of deal, take some bands and some stuff to stay loose and keep the mind sharp.
Yeah, you guys do have an advantage. That's going to be great. That Peloton, oof, man, that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
So how much have you played? How many competitive games do you think you have into your belt this year?
We've played 22 games. My team, we played 4 events. We played 2 in October, 2 in November. We had a good little start. We were 18-4. But same thing, we were a new team, and with Johnny Moe coming in and figuring out the new player, we kind of wanted to get that under our belt. And before things went too crazy here in Alberta, we were able to do that. So, that's okay. But I think, that's the one advantage we do have, being veterans and playing in a whole bunch of Briers and big events that, these are the events that we kind of live for. I mean, this is kind of what gets you out of bed and gets the juices flowing, playing for Canadian championships and, world championships, grand slams. Those are the key ones for me that really get me going. And you always want to test yourself against the best and test yourself against what you've done in the past, right? You always want to make sure in your mind you're still up to snuff. So I think motivation is not going to be a key hard part for this team.
Do you think, though, compared to previous Briers, and you've been in a whole bunch, like in the early goings, do you think the quality of play might be down a notch?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I look at the field, I would tell you no, because it's so deep. Like, it's just, you're never going to look at one of those games and go, oh, we play Epping or Gushue or Jacobs and say, oh, I'm sure they're off their game. Like, you never look at any teams like that. And I think that with the restrictions that have been lifted in some of the provinces for kind of even one-on-one practice and team practices, I actually think that, once these teams, I think the big thing might be some sweeping, some game shape stuff. I mean, I can ride the bike as much as I want or lift some weights, but when you get into playing, 13 games in 9 or 10 days, the body's probably going to be a bit sore and without sweeping. But I think you might see some guys might have been throwing so many rocks and games are tight and their mechanics are great. You know how it is when Bobby, for golf, when you go play 20 rounds and you haven't had any practice, you can still make the odd birdie, but hit the same shot twice in a row can be tough when your mechanics aren't good. But I think with all the practice going into the bubble, I think people are going to be throwing it really, really well. And I think people might even be practicing more than ever because that's all they can do right now, right? Where sometimes after a long bond spiel, you're home and take a couple of days rest the body, and then you got to go to work. And sometimes practice can get a little left behind. And I think people are like, I've never loved practice so much in my life as I do this year, So I don't know. I think the level of play is still going to be really good. I mean, I expect it to be good, especially with the ice conditions we normally see at these events. So I'd be surprised at least by, midweek if teams hadn't found their form and are really playing at a high level.
Yeah. You okay with the way the setup is and the extra teams and stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, they did a great job. Of even, I know it's been a lot of work for, Curling Canada, Alberta Health Authorities, TSN, everybody to put it together. I think you weren't going to hear much complaint, I don't think, from any of the teams that have got in. I do feel, getting soft with my old age maybe, but like, I feel bad for the teams that didn't have a chance to get in. We're pretty fortunate that as a top team, we get to go play in these events, but there's a lot of other teams, up and coming teams, that didn't get in and without a chance to play. So I don't expect much moaning and groaning from the people that are in that bubble. That's for sure. And if they are, they shouldn't be.